Hey biology crew, this is Ms. Holen, and our next lecture is on cell respiration. I do apologize again for the blurriness. My new camera is obviously not working. Go ahead and take a second here, stop the video for just about 2 seconds, and please copy down the mitochondria. Alright guys, so let's go and talk about cell respiration. Cell respiration happens within the cells where we're going to take our food and the oxygen you breathe, we're going to combine them together, break them down into ATP. Now keep in mind this is carried out by both plants and animals. There are 2 types of cell respiration that we're going to be talking about today. The first is known as anaerobic, and ana in Latin means not, aero means air. So anytime you see the word anaerobic, it means that it requires no air. Aerobic respiration, aero means air, requires air to actually happen. Please go and take a second to stop the video and write out this concept map, and this is what we're going to talk about for the rest of our lecture. Now this concept map gives us an overview of where cell respiration is going to take place. So we're going to take our sugar that we either produce from the chloroplast or sugar we ate from food. We're going to rip it apart and we're going to create a little bit of ATP. This product from sugar getting ripped apart creates what's known as 2-pyruvic acid. We have 2 pathways we're going to journey on. If there is no oxygen, we're going to go into what's known as fermentation. This happens in the cytoplasm, and there's 2 types we're going to talk about in this lecture today, lactic acid and alcoholic. If there is oxygen, we're going to journey down another pathway called aerobic respiration. This takes place in the mitochondria, and this is where we get our 36 ATP and a little bit of your CO2 and oxygen. This formula here is going to literally be the reverse of photosynthesis, which will link us back to the chloroplast to redo our sugar. Today's lecture, however, we're going to follow this path here and talk about fermentation. Go ahead and take a moment to draw this out, push stop, and I will continue when you're ready. Now cellular respiration, despite if we go into the mitochondria or stay outside in the cytoplasm, needs to begin with sugar. And remember from photosynthesis that our chloroplast is going to go through our light reaction and our dark reaction and produce oxygen and sugar at the same time. And if you are not a plant, as humans or heterotrophs, we're going to need to eat our food in order to obtain sugar. Now this sugar here is way too big to stay inside the chloroplast, let alone stay inside the cytoplasm. So we're going to go through this process that's known as glycolysis. Glycolysis physically means glucose breaking. Now, glycolysis happens within the cytoplasm here. We can actually produce about 1,000 ATP in a few milliseconds. So the process is very quick, very fast, and extremely effective. Now what's going to happen is that we're going to take our sugar, we're going to throw in 2 molecules of ATP, and that will allow us to rip the molecule in half. So 3 carbon molecules. By ripping it in half, we actually produce 4 ATP because we're physically ripping those chemical bonds. But if it took 2 to come in and it made 4, then our net product over here is only 2 ATP. Our final molecule is now called pyruvate or pyruvic acid. We get 2 3 carbon molecules. Take a moment and write this down. Now there are 2 pathways that pyruvate or pyruvic acid will take in the cytoplasm. The first pathway is anaerobic respiration over here. It'll remain inside the cytoplasm, and this process is actually known as fermentation. It requires no oxygen, and our products in anaerobic respiration will include lactic acid or alcohol. The end result, however, of going through anaerobic respiration is that there will be no more ATP that will be made. Our second process that pyruvate can go into is what's known as aerobic respiration. It's going to travel from the cytoplasm into the mitochondria where it requires oxygen, and our products that we're going to end up making from this is known as CO2, H2O, and our 36 ATP. The steps of our aerobic respiration, which will happen in lecture part 2, is going to be glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the crazy electron transport chain. Again, take a moment to stop this video and write down these notes. Alright guys, so let's talk about fermentation. We're going to go the pathway that stays in the cytoplasm. This is also known as anaerobic respiration. Again, ana in Latin means not, aero means air. So this pathway requires absolutely no oxygen and again stays in the cytoplasm. So we're going to go through a process that's known as glycolysis, where we're going to break apart our glucose and produce 2 pyruvic acids. This in turn gives us a net product of 2 ATP. The first type of fermentation, or anaerobic respiration, that we can go through is what's known as alcoholic fermentation. It does require yeast, which is a single-cell fungus, and here's what's going to happen. So again, feel free at any time to stop this video and write down these notes. Pyruvic acid is going to combine with NADH, which is simply an electron carrier, and we're going to rip it apart to create what's known as ethanol alcohol, as well as a little bit of CO2. We get a byproduct of what's known as NAD, which is an electron carrier, which will journey back to the chloroplast, where it will get put back together as NADH or NADPH. Now, some examples of alcoholic fermentation include beer making, bread, making wine. Now, just to remind you, because I know some of you are asking, well, what happened to the ATP? Well, the process of alcoholic fermentation actually requires 2 ATP. It produces 2 ATP. So if it required 2 and produced 2, our net product is 0 ATP. The next type of fermentation is known as lactic acid fermentation. This is when our pyruvic acid will get ripped apart and form lactic acid. If this happens in your muscles, they literally turn into crystals. Lactic acid also produces a little bit of NAD. And so again, we get a little bit of energy, but not as much as we would like. Lactic acid, again, happens in your muscles, so it's a type of protein. So if you don't breathe right, you're going to get those crystals. If we take lactic acid and stick it inside, say, milk or cheese, we can actually end up making dairy products such as yogurt. So here's the deal, guys. If you eat food and you are not breathing, then your body will go through glycolysis and break apart your food, aka your sugar, into pyruvic acid. If you continue not to breathe, for example, if you're running from a bear and you're just booking it and not even breathing, your muscles will start to cramp, forming those crystals of lactic acid inside of it. So please, please, please breathe. Otherwise, your muscles will cramp, you're gonna fall. And long story short, if it's a brown bear you're running from, please play dead. He's not going to mess with you. He might kind of bat you around a bit. But if it's a black bear you're running from, you better breathe, because otherwise you are dead. Hope you enjoyed the lecture on fermentation and cell respiration. We will be talking about aerobic respiration in lecture part 2. Thanks. Bye.